In our last segment, we learned how plumbing was being installed in a new high-rise apartment building and saw firsthand the amount of coordination and planning required for a major construction project. Now let's head to a new chemistry lab at the Milwaukee School of Engineering to check out a specialized plumbing system with Jeff Kola from Alpine Plumbing. So this job site's a little less hectic than the last one we were just at. There are all the building trades working at one time, bumping into each other, but getting the job done. Here it looks like there's just a couple of your plumbers on site at this stage?
That's correct. We're down to the final stages and we'll be drywalling shortly.
Now what facility is this?
We are at the chemistry labs at Milwaukee School of Engineering in downtown Milwaukee.
Okay, so it's a remodeling project, and being that it's a chemistry lab, I take it the plumbing is very important because there's a lot of people depending on it.
It is. Future students and present students require this to be functioning correctly.
And so you said you had a couple of plumbers here, journeymen. Are they well trained on all aspects of it? Because there's a lot of different material that's being worked with.
They are. They're trained both by Local 75 as well as the manufacturer of the equipment we're using.
Okay, what are we looking at up above here?
Up above here we have lab air and lab vacuum as well as hot and cold water. The lab air and the lab vac would be brazed, which they are trained at Local 75 how to braze.
And what exactly do you mean by brazing?
Well, it's a little different than soldering the water. It's a lot hotter temperature.
A lot more specialized?
It is more specialized.
So obviously, being a journeyman, they had the opportunity to be trained in different aspects of the plumbing industry. That's a good case in point of the specialized training that this field requires?
Right. We're offered, like I said, we were offered at Local 75 as well as in the field. They were trained by their journeymen when they were apprentices.
Do they work with other specialized pieces of equipment?
They do. This piece of equipment, for example, is used for the reverse osmosis water as well as the deionized water at all the lab stations.
It sounds pretty technical right there.
It is. It's a pretty expensive piece of equipment, about $8,000.
Wow, and so these guys have to know how to operate this, so do they work with the manufacturer to know how?
They are. They are trained and certified by the manufacturer before they take part in using this equipment.
And why is this so important?
Well, this fuses the RO and the deionized water together. Two ends of the pipe on each side. We have a fitting in the middle. They're heat fused together, and it makes your joint.
And I know from past shows, with heat fusion, that really becomes one piece of pipe. There's not a mechanical joint per se there.
That is correct.
And obviously, being in a chemistry lab, you want to make sure that it's done correctly.
Right. There's a lot of people, like you said earlier, depending on it functioning correctly.
Okay, this is obviously the supply side with all the copper up there. Equally important is that waste.
That's right, and we have some of that over here.
Oh, so over here, this blue piping, is this the acid waste?
That is, Stu. It's the acid waste piping.
Now, why is it blue?
Well, it's a polypropylene material, unlike PVC. This is heat fused and then clamped to make our final connection.
Heat fused, so is it similar to fusing the RO system over there that we saw?
Similar, but a little different.
Okay, how is that done?
Actually, there's electric leads that are stuck on here. The machine is turned on, which fuses it together.
Wow. Again, I'm always talking about the evolution of an industry, but I've never heard of that before, but it's electrically fused. And again, the training, these guys have to know how to do that, use that equipment.
That's right. Like we said earlier, with all the new methods of joining pipe, we got to be well versed in how to put it in. And again, the manufacturer trained us in it as well as Local 75.
Okay, obviously very important because you don't want the acid leaking once it's behind the wall, once it's covered up. But where does all the acid, all this waste, where does it all go?
Well, we're presently on the second floor, Stu. This runs down to the basement to a very large chemical dilution basin where the acid's diluted and then goes to the sanitary sewer.
A lot of people might not think of that, but again, it falls onto the plumbers to make sure that's all done correctly, because ultimately you want to be able to recycle any water and you want it to be safe for everybody.
Got to be safe.
How long until you're done with this project?
We have roughly about 2 more months and we should be all wrapped up.
Okay, well I appreciate you taking a few minutes out to show us the behind the scenes of what goes into a chemistry lab.
Thanks.
Stick around. We'll see how plumbing is part of a downtown revitalization project next, when we continue with today's Home Remodeler.